A stem cell treatment in a private clinic in Miami costs between $15,000 and $50,000 per session. A grandmother in rural South Korea pays nothing. She walks to her kitchen, opens a clay fermentation crock, and spoons out something that has been sitting in salt and thyme for 6 weeks. She has done this every morning for 40 years. So did her mother, and her grandmother before that. And at the end of this video, you will know the 5 fermented foods that activate your body's own regenerative system without a single clinic visit, a single injection, or a single $1 spent on supplements. Here's what most people misunderstand about stem cells. They are not science fiction. They are not experimental. They are not something that only exists in a laboratory. Your body is producing stem cells right now as you listen to this. They are rebuilding your gut lining. They are repairing damaged tissue. They are replacing worn-out blood cells and generating new immune cells every single day. This is not future medicine. This is how your body has always worked. The problem is time. By the time you reach 50 years old, your stem cell production has dropped dramatically compared to when you were 20. The repair crews are still there. There are just fewer of them. They work slower. They respond less efficiently to damage. This is why wounds heal slower as you age, why your gut becomes more sensitive, why your brain feels foggier. The stem cells have not disappeared. They have gone quiet. Recognizing this decline, a lucrative private industry emerged around regenerative medicine. Private clinics have opened globally, with many patients traveling overseas to countries like Panama or Thailand, offering costly injections of concentrated stem cells derived from bone marrow, adipose tissue, or umbilical tissues. The treatment works for some, it fails for others, and it requires repeating every few months. But there is a question that almost nobody in Western medicine thought to ask. What if certain foods, prepared in a very specific way, could signal your own body to wake those dormant stem cells back up? What if the preparation method mattered more than the plant itself? What if fermentation, the oldest food technology in human civilization, was not just preserving nutrients but transforming them into compounds that trigger cellular regeneration? 5 plants, 5 fermentation methods, all of them consumed daily by hundreds of millions of people across East Asia, and every single one of them activates a different stem cell pathway. The first one has been used to rebuild a mother's body after childbirth for over 1,000 years. In the West, landscapers spray it with poison. In Korea, childbirth is followed by a tradition that has no equivalent in Western medicine. For 21 days after delivery, the new mother is cared for in a practice called sanhujori. Her family prepares specific foods designed to help her body rebuild. One of the most important is a soft green rice cake made from a plant that grows wild across the Korean peninsula. They call it suk. The Japanese call it yomogi. Botanists call it Artemisia princeps. In most of the English-speaking world, it is called mugwort. And in most American states, it is classified as an invasive weed. Korean grandmothers did not call it medicine. They called it food for recovery. They steamed mugwort into rice cakes called suk taeok. They brewed it into fermented teas. They boiled it into baths called suk tang for the new mother to soak in. The entire tradition was built around one observation that had been passed down for centuries. Women who ate fermented mugwort after giving birth recovered faster. Their tissue healed more quickly, their energy returned sooner, their bodies rebuilt themselves. Western medicine dismissed this as folk practice for generations. Then researchers began studying a compound called eupatylin that is found almost exclusively in Artemisia species. Eupatylin protects the stem cell niche. The niche is the microenvironment where your stem cells live, divide, and produce new cells. When that environment is damaged by inflammation or oxidative stress, the stem cells stop working. They go dormant. Eupatylin shields that environment. It keeps the factory floor clean so the workers can do their jobs. Here's the part that changes everything. Raw mugwort contains eupatylin, but fermented mugwort delivers it in a form the body can actually absorb. The rice cakes, the aged teas, the vinegar infusions, all of these traditional preparations break down the plant's cell walls and pre-digest the polyphenols before they ever enter your stomach. The Korean grandmother did not just feed mugwort to the new mother, she fermented it first. That single step is what made the difference between eating a leaf and activating a regenerative pathway. Mugwort grows across North America, Europe, and all of Asia. It thrives in disturbed soil, along roadsides, in abandoned lots, in the margins of farmland. In Korea, it is national heritage. In America, it is sprayed with herbicides, same plant, same compounds, different understanding. But mugwort targets one type of stem cell in one system of the body. The next plant goes deeper. It feeds the system that feeds every stem cell you have, and it has been hiding underground in Japanese gardens for over 1,000 years. Walk into any neighborhood izakaya in Tokyo or Osaka on a weekday evening. Before your main dish arrives, a small plate will appear on the table. Thin strips of a pale root vegetable, braised in soy and mirin, sometimes sprinkled with sesame seeds. This is kinpira gobo. It is one of the most common side dishes in Japan. Korean families prepare the same root in a dish called ueongjorim, braised in a sweet soy reduction. Hundreds of millions of people eat this root every week. Nobody calls it a health food. It is just dinner. The root is burdock. In the West, it is the plant whose burrs stick to your socks when you walk through an overgrown field. That is the only thing most Westerners know about it. The burrs inspired the invention of Velcro in 1941 when a Swiss engineer named George de Mestral pulled them off his dog's fur and examined them under a microscope. He saw hooks, he built an industry, he never once looked at the root. Burdock root contains a compound called arctigenin. In preliminary laboratory models and animal studies, arctigenin has been observed to influence neural progenitor cell differentiation, pointing to a potential mechanism for supporting cellular health in nervous tissue. These are not foreign cells being injected, these are your own cells being told to do what they were designed to do. But that is only the first pathway. Burdock root contains up to 45% inulin by dry weight. Inulin is a prebiotic fiber that your body cannot digest. Instead, it passes through your stomach and into your large intestine, where it feeds specific populations of beneficial bacteria. Those bacteria produce a short-chain fatty acid called butyrate, and butyrate has been shown to directly stimulate intestinal stem cell renewal. Your gut lining replaces itself every 3 to 5 days. That replacement depends on intestinal stem cells. Butyrate tells those stem cells to keep dividing. One root, two completely different regenerative pathways, brain and gut simultaneously. And the traditional preparation methods unlock both. Japanese pickled burdock involves lactic acid fermentation. Korean braised burdock involves prolonged cooking in acidic soy-based broths. Both processes extract arctigenin from the dense root fiber far more efficiently than eating it raw. The fermentation and slow cooking breaks down the woody cell structure and liberates the compounds that would otherwise pass through your body untouched. In the United States, burdock is classified as a weed. In the United Kingdom, it is classified as a weed. Across most of Europe, farmers pull it from their fields and discard it. The root that activates neural stem cells and rebuilds the gut lining is torn from the earth and thrown away. Burdock works from the inside out. It rebuilds the gut and the brain simultaneously. But the next plant works on a completely different level. It does not just protect stem cells, it clears the wreckage that blocks them from doing their job. And it has been sacred across Asia for 3,000 years. In Buddhist temples across China, Japan, and Korea, the monks eat a specific cuisine that has remained virtually unchanged for centuries: temple food. No meat, no garlic, no onion. Simple preparations designed to sustain the body without disturbing the mind. One ingredient appears across nearly every temple kitchen on the continent: lotus root. In China, families prepare fermented sweet osmanthus lotus root during the Lunar New Year. The sliced root is stuffed with glutinous rice simmered in osmanthus syrup and left to ferment slightly in its own sugars. In Japan, cooks prepare renkon in vinegar-based preparations that preserve the root through mild acetic acid fermentation. In Korea, yeongun is braised in soy and sesame, then stored in crocks where slow lactic acid cultures develop over days. The lotus itself is the most remarkable regenerative organism in the plant kingdom. In 1995, researchers successfully germinated a lotus seed recovered from a dry lake bed in northeastern China. The seed was 1,300 years old, 13 centuries of dormancy, and it grew. No other plant species on Earth has demonstrated seed viability anywhere close to this. The plant that teaches your body to regenerate is itself the greatest regenerator in the botanical world. Lotus embryos and roots contain an alkaloid called nephrine, which has been studied in laboratory cell models for its ability to stimulate autophagy, the body's cellular cleanup process. Autophagy is your body's cellular housekeeping system. It identifies damaged cells, cells that have stopped functioning properly but refuse to die, and it clears them out. These are sometimes called senescent cells or zombie cells. They clog the stem cell niche. They take up space. They release inflammatory signals that tell nearby stem cells to stay dormant. Nephrine helps clear them, but nephrine does not work alone. Lotus root also contains unique polysaccharides that have been shown to modulate hematopoietic stem cells. These are the stem cells in your bone marrow that produce every blood cell and every immune cell in your body. Lotus root both clears the path and activates the builders. It removes the obstacles and turns on the construction crew at the same time. Fermented lotus root preparations break down the dense starch matrix of the raw root and release nephrine and polysaccharides, informs the digestive system can absorb efficiently. Raw lotus root is a nutritious vegetable. Fermented lotus root is something closer to medicine. Lotus root is virtually unknown in Western grocery stores outside of Asian markets. No supplement company has isolated nephrine into capsules. No pharmaceutical company has patented an autophagy drug derived from lotus. The compound exists in a plant that cannot be commercially controlled. Lotus grows in any pond, any lake, any container of still water with mud at the bottom. It grows wild across most of the temperate and tropical world. It costs almost nothing, and it cannot be owned. 3 plants, 3 completely different stem cell pathways: gut stem cells, neural stem cells, blood-forming stem cells. The pattern is becoming impossible to ignore. But plant number 4 is where it all started. This is the one that 500 million people eat every single week, and it contains a combination of compounds that no other plant on Earth produces in the same concentrations. Walk into any Korean barbecue restaurant tonight, watch the table next to you. Diners will pick up large green leaves with serrated edges and purple undersides. They will place a piece of grilled meat on the leaf, add a dab of fermented soybean paste, and fold it into a wrap. This is not lettuce, this is not spinach, this is perilla. Koreans call it ki-kaenip. Japanese call it shiso. Chinese call it zisu. 500 million people across East Asia eat it every single week. Most Westerners have never heard the word. In Japan, every piece of sashimi arrives with a perilla leaf underneath it. Tourists assume it is garnish. It is not. Japanese chefs place that leaf there for a reason that predates modern microbiology by centuries. The leaf kills bacteria. The leaf kills parasites. The leaf protects the person eating raw fish. Perilla contains a flavonoid called luteolin. Research has shown that luteolin promotes neural stem cell proliferation in the hippocampus, the region of the brain responsible for memory formation and learning. It tells dormant stem cells in the brain to begin dividing again. Perilla also contains more rosmarinic acid than any other culinary herb ever tested, more than rosemary, despite sharing the name of the compound. Rosmarinic acid reduces the chronic low-grade inflammation that degrades the stem cell niche over time. When the niche is inflamed, stem cells go silent. Perilla reduces the inflammation. The stem cells wake up. Korean families have fermented perilla leaves for centuries. The preparation is called kan-neep jengaji. Fresh leaves are layered with soy sauce, garlic, chili, and sometimes anchovy stock, then left to ferment for weeks in sealed containers. This is not just preservation. The fermentation breaks down cell walls, liberates bound polyphenols, and creates entirely new bioactive compounds that do not exist in the raw leaf. The fermented leaf is biochemically different from the fresh leaf. It is more potent, it is more absorbable, it is more effective. Perilla seed oil contains 64% alpha-linolenic acid. This is the highest omega-3 concentration ever measured in any plant species, higher than flaxseed, higher than chia, and omega-3 fatty acids are structural components of stem cell membranes. Without adequate omega-3, stem cells cannot divide efficiently. They lack the building material for new cell walls. Perilla provides both the signal to activate stem cells and the raw material they need to replicate, the signal and the supply in one plant. The omega-3 supplement industry generates $4 billion annually selling fish oil capsules. Perilla seed oil can be cold-pressed with a hand tool that costs less than $100. No factory, no patents, no cold chain shipping. A crop that self-seeds and returns every spring. An oil that outperforms every commercial product on the market. And almost no one in the Western world knows it exists. 4 plants, 4 fermentation traditions, 4 stem cell pathways. But here is where everything converges. The 5th entry on this list is not a plant. It is what happens when you ferment a plant in a very specific way. And when you understand what it does, you will understand why fermentation was the missing key the entire time. Every summer across Japan, millions of families perform the same ritual. They buy fresh plums from local markets. They buy bundles of red shiso leaves, a deep crimson variety of perilla. They layer the plums with salt and pack the red shiso leaves between them in ceramic crocks. Then they wait. For weeks, the salt draws liquid from the plums and the leaves. The red pigments bleed into the brine. A chemical transformation begins. The liquid that accumulates at the bottom of the crock is called aka shiso-su, red shiso vinegar. Most families treat it as a byproduct, something to pour off or use sparingly as a condiment. But this liquid may be the most medicinally significant substance discussed in this entire video. Red shiso contains an anthocyanin called shisonin that is found in no other commonly consumed plant. During fermentation, shisonin combines with acetic acid in the vinegar environment to form compounds with dramatically enhanced bioavailability. Research on similar anthocyanin fermentation suggests absorption rates increase 3 to 5 times compared to the raw leaf. The anti-inflammatory polyphenols, the autophagy-promoting signals, the stem cell niche protectors, all of them arrive in the bloodstream at concentrations that eating the raw leaf simply cannot achieve. This is the moment the entire video has been building toward. Look at the pattern. Every plant discussed in the last 20 minutes shares one feature. Not the species, not the continent, not the culture, the preparation. Every single one was fermented. Mugwort was fermented into rice cakes and teas. Burdock was fermented in lactic acid pickles and slow braised in acidic broths. Lotus root was fermented in vinegar preparations and osmanthus syrups. Perilla was fermented in soy brine for weeks, and red shiso was fermented into vinegar itself. Fermentation does not just preserve food, it transforms plant compounds into forms that cross the gut barrier intact, survive the acid bath of digestion, enter the bloodstream, and reach the stem cell niches in your brain, your gut, your bone marrow, and your immune system. The method is the medicine. The clay crock is the delivery system. The weeks of waiting are the manufacturing process. Asia understood this before chemistry existed as a word. No supplement company can patent a fermentation process that grandmothers have performed for 1,000 years. No capsule can replicate the complex biochemistry of a 6-week lactic acid fermentation. The supplement industry sells isolated compounds stripped from their original context. Fermentation delivers complete systems, thousands of bioactive molecules working together in ratios that no laboratory has successfully duplicated. That is why this knowledge never crossed the Pacific Ocean in a product label. There was no product. There was only food, prepared with patience, passed down through families and eaten every single day. 5 plants, 5 fermentation traditions, 5 distinct stem cell pathways: gut renewal, neural regeneration, blood cell production, niche protection, autophagy clearance. Not one mechanism repeated 5 times. 5 separate mechanisms working on 5 different fronts of your body's regenerative system. Stem cell clinics charge $15,000 to $50,000 per session. Supplement companies sell omega-3 capsules for $30 a bottle. Anti-inflammatory drugs cost patients hundreds per month. Meanwhile, the most comprehensive stem cell support system ever documented has been sitting in fermentation crocks, clay jars, and ceramic pots across Korea, Japan, and China for centuries. It costs almost nothing. It requires no prescription. It cannot be patented. Asia did not hide any of this. Korean grandmothers ferment mugwort into rice cakes and feed them to new mothers. Japanese families pickle burdock root and serve it at every dinner table. Chinese monks prepare lotus root in temple kitchens and have done so for 3,000 years. 500 million people wrap grilled meat in fermented perilla leaves every week. Millions of Japanese families make red shiso vinegar every summer and have done so for generations. The knowledge was never secret. It was never locked behind closed doors. It was always public, always available, always sitting in plain sight on kitchen tables across a continent. The reason the West never noticed is not conspiracy. It is structure. Economic systems see what benefits economic systems. Research follows funding. Funding follows patents. Patents require control. Fermented mugwort cannot be controlled. Self-seeding perilla cannot be controlled. Lotus growing wild in a pond cannot be controlled. Burdock root returning every spring in an abandoned lot cannot be controlled. And red shiso vinegar fermenting in a ceramic crock in a grandmother's kitchen cannot be controlled. What cannot be owned cannot be sold. What cannot be sold cannot be marketed. What cannot be marketed does not enter consciousness, and what does not enter consciousness does not enter the research pipeline that Western medicine depends on to validate what it already knows. But you know now. You know the plants. You know the methods. You know why fermentation is the key that transforms a vegetable into something your stem cells actually respond to. The clay jars are still sitting on kitchen shelves across Asia tonight. The same recipes, the same methods, the same results. 1,000 years old and still working, still waiting, still free.